So we're going to get started. Thanks, folks, for joining. Looks like we have a nice attendance and very excited that on the first day of the NCAA basketball tournament that you all love data security so much that you're going to join us instead of watching what could be some compelling games, not indicating what I might be doing later today. But appreciate everyone's time and thanks for joining us. Just by way of intro, I'll introduce the team that you have on here and then we can just jump right into it. So Jesse Sedler, VP of Product. I'll be kind of going through the slides. We have Ronak Patel, who's the VP of Global Sales Engineering. He'll be doing the demo to show you guys what we're working on. And then Darren Pendergraft is the VP of Marketing, recently joined us, doing great things, and is the host of the webinar. Just from a housekeeping standpoint, as we go through this, if you have any questions, please use the chat bar or the Q&A, whichever, and we will be tracking those. We might stop, we want this to be more interactive, so we might stop and answer your question. We also might wait till the end, depending on the nature of what the question is and how it relates to the content on hand. Also open to general questions or anything that you guys want to ask. And with that, I think that we'll jump in. So in case you're not in the right place, this is the OneTouch.io Inventa 3.3 release overview. We'll be talking about sensitive data intelligence and how that relates to our 3.3 release. All right, and jumping in, here we are, here are our pictures. But in terms of the agenda, so as we said, this is going to be the what's new in the product, what's coming out. This is GA'd for later this week. Well, it's Thursday, so by tomorrow, this will be out and people can get their hands on it. We're also happy to take demos and start showing some of the functionality. Then we'll get to the demo that Ronak's going to do. Q&A, again, that's going to be rolling Q&A, ask your questions. And then closing, just be, again, the quick thank you, and we'll move on. Probably not going to take a full hour if folks do want to get to basketball. So probably we're thinking between 30 and 40 minutes or so. Great. So with that, the release overview. GA date got pushed a bit. That's okay. But typically when we do our releases, right, we have some releases that are very focused on data sources because as a sensitive data intelligence tool, right, we need to be scanning different types of data sources. Other releases, kind of on the off releases, is more on the feature function side of the house, which is what this release is and why we thought this would be a great way to kick off our webinar series, is focusing on this release. In terms of the data sources that we're releasing, as you can see, Microsoft Teams and Microsoft OneNote. So very focused on unstructured data and focused on really more collaborative types of tools. We hear all the time from customers, yes, we know the typical file shares and structured databases. What about, my chats? Because if you're talking about DSAR or you're talking about, where your security ends, well, the answer is that those things don't end, right? You still have to be caring about when somebody is chatting somebody else, either using names, using their information, sharing a customer list via Teams or Slack or anything else, that still counts, right? It doesn't not count because it's not in an email. So we have to have coverage for those types of sources, and we think that's very valuable to our customers and just to the broader community overall. In terms of integrations, 3 key integrations in this release. So one of them is Guardian Data Protection, which we started the integration in 3.0. In this case, we're showing a different view of the data we pull from GDP into a more of a risk view, which Ronak will show. We also added support for Denodo, which is a data catalog. And when we say RDA, this means using the data in Denodo as a training data set. And that is how we can get accuracy that's 99% plus. The concept of RDA, we'd be happy to dive into if anyone has questions outside of that, and the concepts that allow us for that accuracy, also happy to do. But, overall, the more RDAs that we can support as data sets, the more likely we are to be applicable in various types of environments. And that also all aids into the high accuracy that we're seeing in production at Fortune 500 companies. Then finally, Red Hat OpenShift, right? So the container orchestration platform that is Red Hat's now owned by IBM. IBM is a strategic partner of ours. This became incredibly relevant, and the world is moving more towards the types of tools like an OpenShift because of the massive functionality that it has. Then in terms of use cases, we'll talk more about this as we get through it, but one is just attack surface reduction and the idea of data minimization. For my unstructured files, how do I know how old some data is so I can start deprecating, deleting, encrypt and throw the key away type of stuff. And then secrets discovery or cryptographic discovery, however you want to frame it. This is kind of the front end to the crypto agility types of processes, but we'll talk more about what all of those terms mean that I just mentioned. If you guys are not familiar, when we get to that slide. And then a few of the other things is a geolocation dashboard to physically see on a map where your data is located and how it's moving, as well as, we're now ability to filter in SQL databases. So maybe you don't want to scan the entire database. Maybe you want to scan just a single table in a database. You don't want to waste resources scanning the entire thing. So we allow for very, very granular filtering to dictate what aspects of the data source get scanned. The last one is that, in one of the views in the product that shows what data sources have been scanned, we can also show you when a scan is done at a very high level from a summary standpoint, what data elements are in that repository. When we say data element, we mean, is it HIPAA data, PCI data, social security number? Again, just kind of giving you a rough run through of, we know it's customer data in Europe, right? We have the business context, but now I also want to know how risky is that data set, what data was found in it, and so I can drill into it and help me prioritize what actions to take. So first off, risk tab. So this has to do with our integration with Guardium Data Protection, where we're taking into our product, one-touch Inventa, the vulnerabilities that exist within Guardium Vulnerability Assessment, so that you can start surfacing those and have an understanding of the data within those vulnerabilities or within those data sets that contain vulnerabilities, and how you might want to remediate and the remediation over time. Same time, we also have the geolocation view on top. Allows you to understand the location of sensitive data. Again, the location is all relative. We tell you very well the file path of the sensitive data, but physically, where is that data set? Especially for on-prem data center data, is it in the wrong place, right? That's a very big, important question to help decision makers understand their overall risk posture, right? And from the vulnerability standpoint, again, it's all very filterable. You can also see when integrating with Guardium, what of the data sets that are monitored also have vulnerabilities, right? So you can get very granular. And what that tells the end user is that if I'm not monitoring something that is very vulnerable, that's something I should probably either monitor, keep an eye on, or somehow prioritize above a data set that maybe is vulnerable, but it's being monitored in some way. So you as the end user already know, all right, I have some safeguard there. So if in terms of what to either go fix first or prioritizing what to monitor, you have a very clear understanding of that prioritization. And that seems to be the key for any type of data security exercise, right? Is I only have so many resources and I have so much stuff I have to secure. So any way to help a CISO or risk executive who is grasping today for figuring out what to go contain or what to go protect, to give them a prioritization of that becomes very, very key and paramount to their decision making. So this is the risk tab. Ronak will show more as we get to the demo. Okay. Number 2 is attack surface reduction. So what we're showing in this dashboard and what you'll see is that we give you basically two very clear views. One is of the files that you have, how old are they? So date created. And we give you a graphical view to show you how much data exists, and that's either personal data or sensitive data. At the same time, we also will show you the last time it was modified, which should tell you as the risk executive in this example, if you have data that is more than 10 years old and hasn't been modified in 10 years, you might want to do something to it. Why are you holding on to it? Right? It's just additional risk. It can be backed up, moved to cold storage, whatever other remediation tactic you want to take. You also can think about it from a cloud migration standpoint of, I have a lot of data on-prem. I'm moving it to cloud. If it's really, really old sensitive data, why would I also move it to cloud where everything I move onto there is adding to more compute and more charge and becomes that much more expensive when I move it? So the value of this, overall, from a business standpoint, is that if I have 33% of my data, according to Veritas, is rot, which is redundant, obsolete, or trivial, then can't I retire some of that and reduce my overall attack surface? Because all of this data you're still responsible for, and it's still risky data. But if it's not being used, there's no business value to it anymore, then it's time to get rid of it. So this allows for the executive to both track this data. You'll see that you can click into all of this and you can export out lists. So if you wanted to understand how much data is more than 10 years old, you can remediate relatively quickly and easily. And a lot of our customers today have started using this and similar functionality within the product. The next one is secrets classification or cryptographic discovery. The business problem here is that, and this one is a bit kind of more out there still, but as quantum computers are rising, right? And we read about it quite often in the security industry, that there's lots of great things that quantum computers will do for the world, but there's also the fear that it'll break a lot of the asymmetric encryption like an RSA or Diffie-Hellman that we're using today, and that's securing communications, websites, networks, whatever now, TLS, SSL, all these things are going to start being broken because of the power of a quantum machine. At the same time, symmetric encryption, like an AES for data at rest, if you're using low bit keys, then those also can be broken in relatively short order. And so the challenge for big organizations is, while we don't know when quantum day will come that will take over the world and these machines will be out there for use, what we do know is that NIST, the National Institute for Standards and Technology, has recommended 4 algorithms that can be used and will be certified pretty soon to start replacing either your asymmetric encryption or your certificate management tools. And so on the face of it, where organizations need to start in this journey, which is going to be a very, very long journey, is you don't know what needs to be replaced and what's vulnerable until you know what you have. So it's very similar to the broader data security journey of, I have a lot of data and I don't know what to protect in what order. In this case, it's I have a lot of keys and cryptography in my environment that at some level will need to be replaced or remediated in some manner. Well, you have to discover, classify, and inventory what those things are before you can start taking actions. And this gives a lot of organizations a way to reset the thinking of how their organization is structured, because it gives you a very clear date by when, or rather a clear overall time frame by when these changes need to be made. And so what we're doing in Inventa 3.3 is that we now have the ability in storage to discover, classify, and understand the basically different types of secrets, crypto functions, algorithms, and length of encryption keys based on supported file extensions. And more generally, a lot of encryption is stored in HSMs or key stores that are all FIPS certified. So those encryption keys and algorithms and whatnot, there's already a central place where they're known. What this becomes very useful for is for unknown encryption, right? A developer stands up an environment somewhere and has a database, has a data store, whatever it might be. And they're encrypting that data, but they're storing that key locally, or they're storing that key in Box or Workspace or their local file share. That is entirely outside of the purview and understanding of the IT and the security organization. So Inventa here can be a tool that helps you find and discover the unknown unknowns when it comes to cryptography, which is what we do today with data sources as well. But this is a new area of risk that there's no visibility into. And very simply, we can go into our system and say, all right, where is RSA being stored in any of my storage? And we can find that. We can export the file path, and we have a full roadmap dedicated towards building out this functionality, because we see the value in all of this being, take the unknown cryptography, take our understanding of what those keys are protecting, because we have a very granular understanding of basically what's in the box and in the repository that's being protected. And that is how we expect in the future executives to prioritize what needs to be fixed in what order, because we'll know how sensitive is the repository or the connection point or the application to data source stream. So we have a very unique and granular view. See that we have a question.
Yeah. So just a quick comment on this, and then I'll let you get to your question. But, I think this is really interesting, because I think a lot of customers will say, oh, I've got my sensitive data protected. It's encrypted, right? But if they don't know the level of encryption or the type of encryption, or if they can't comprehensively go and discover that new encryption, I think they're falsely overconfident. So I just want to kind of double down on your last point. I think it's relevant. I think this is a new area. And as you kind of mentioned at the beginning of this slide, there's a lot of news coming out about quantum computers being able to just quickly break weak encryption. So I think it's interesting. I think potentially people that feel like they're protected could use this feature to go double check and update, all older, outdated encryption. And I just think it's a really interesting early market for this. So congratulations to you and the team. I think this is a really cool feature.
Yeah, we're excited about it, because while it's it's maybe not the exact realm of traditional discover and classification tools, the exercise is the same thing, right? It either supported file extensions to go discover and classify, right? We can extend this into applications, right? Just go into source code in GitHub and go find certain patterns that look like it could be a key or a hard coded API key, algorithm, library, whatever else it might be. We can extend this out. Even today, we have functionality around even across the network. What's being used? Is it TLS 1.1, 1.2? Is it SSL? Now, we have future roadmap plans to be able to export that list of where is SSL being used, so that you then have a very clear understanding of what needs to be remediated. So all of this is powerful. All of this for us is kind of dipping our toes in to see, is the market ripe for this? Is it too early? A lot of it is a learning exercise, but from our early customer interviews and talking with our partners about this, it's a lot of interest and a lot of hype. And this is being seen as the next Y2K, but with much more sensitive information. And it's not like the date just happens and then it's done. This will be an ongoing decades-long project where the tooling is needed. So we are very excited about that.
Hey, before you move on, maybe we should handle that question. Do you want to handle that one? Do you want to move back a slide and just kind of address that?
Yes, let me read the question. I'll read it out loud. So for the age data, the challenge is there a capability to show the data lineage to the asset to know if there's a tie-in to an application that might break as a result of purging data? Can you elaborate on overall data lineage capabilities?
So do you want to handle that now, or is that something you want to take offline?
So I'll answer a little bit now, and I'll answer a little bit during when I actually show the demonstration. There is data lineage is a pretty broad industry term. So by its definition, it's to see the transformation of data as it moves through an organization. There isn't a lot of single tools that could actually do that in the market. Possibly a combination of tools can do it. So with the solution here, we can integrate into data governance tool that can give that kind of view that you're looking for. So in terms of data assets, with our network analytic engine, you could see how data is flowing within an organization, mapping it to a specific data asset or business context, seeing the source and destination, and then lineage to mapping it back to an actual individual. So the question is pretty broad in term. It really depends on a specific use case. In this instance, data lineage towards an application. Would this solution tell if that specific question asks if that data was purged? Would we be able to tell if that's going to break the tool? Probably not, but it will give an indication of how the data is flowing, originated from the data asset, using a combination of tools, data governance tool, possibly a SIM. We could probably meet specific requirements, but certainly opening to fleshing out that use case some more.
Great. It was a great question.
Yeah, that's great. Keep them coming. All right, so we did secrets. Next up is Geolocation Dashboard, which I touched on a little bit earlier, and we'll get to more in the demo. But again, it's an understanding of your sensitive data, or your not sensitive data, or your monitored data, or your not monitored data from Guardium. Just where is it? And this really helps from a compliance standpoint of just, is data moving to a location that it shouldn't? If it's labeled as European customer data and it's in the US for some reason, that's probably an issue. So you now know what to remediate. And we can, again, export that file path so you know exactly what it is, where it is, and what actions should then be taken as a result of it. So this one's pretty straightforward, but it's very compelling and it makes for a good dashboard. And see no other questions, so I will turn it over to Ronak now for the demo.
All right, sounds good. Yep, and stop sharing your screen, which you did, and I will take over. So, so it's going to highlight some of the key functionality in our platform, specifically what Jesse touched on. So our data protection dashboard, this is tuned for a specific integration we have with the Guardium data protection product, but there's still value whether you utilize this data protection tool or not. It'll give you a security status if the system has auto-populated data sources via the import, via a network tap, and you haven't classified all those data sources, your security status will be low. There's also what's also calculated in this is whether there's sensitive data elements in various amounts of data sources, which regulations are in scope. You see specifically this shows what's being monitored by that protection tool, what's not yet classified, i.e. we haven't done a scan, or we've done scans, system knows we've classified it, but there's no monitoring agent applied here. So a lot of insights as it pertains to this tool. We'll break it down by data source vendor. So you can see of your AWS, RDS oracles, which are monitored by the protection tool, what's not monitored, what's not yet classified. So give you some insights here. In regards to a privacy view, we'll show an organization based on PII residency. So we have California residents, GDPR residents, your residences from Europe. We have HIPAA data elements. These could be prescription numbers. These could be blood work results. The system is tuned and tied to specific regulations. So we'll give you an overview of which regulations are in scope based on the data elements that we've scanned. This also gives a view in terms of what's not being monitored by the protection tool or what's unknown to the protection tool. We'll also give you a security status by data asset, which is tied to very simple training models we could create from our UI, regards to employees, customers, UK employees in scope of GDPR, US employees, California employees in scope of CCPA. So a lot of granularity to define what those data assets are, a breakdown of what the special categories are based on the data elements, and also a view of the distribution by data category. How much information are you holding by these specific categories, whether it's financial information, personal information, race, opinions, orientation, things like that. And also give a data category breakdown based on the number of data sources in scope. And of those data sources, how many schemas, tables, and columns contains that particular category of information. And also showing an attack surface view of your data elements. Of your data sources, your entire attack surface encompasses a lot of vehicle types, vehicle years, which you may or may not be as concerned about. But if you have national ID and credit card numbers or employee IDs or really personal identifiable information or sensitive PII, you may want to be aware of that. And then gives you this dashboard view of those data elements, how many data sources are in scope, the schemas, tables, and columns are in scope. So it really gives a non-technical audience the ability to look at this and see how vulnerable they are in a snapshot. Our risk map, what Jesse was talking about, this one's very interesting. So this will show basically of what we scan, where those environments are hosted. We have a view of USA and Europe, and we have a global view as well. So if you click on any one of these bubbles, it'll tell you here in Florida, I have 30 databases. 13 of them contain personal data. 17 of them contain sensitive data. I could drill down to any one of those, and it'll filter those data sources. I could see some associated metadata around it. What data elements are in there? What category tags are there? What data assets are in scope? The criticality score, and I could drill down even some more and say I've classified this. There's a monitoring agent applied, but there's no policies enabled, and we'll give us some insights. We have credit card numbers and clear text value. So there's a lot that this platform covers in terms of giving you a highlight and then giving you the ability to drill down specifically. So with that, I want to show our attack surface reduction dashboard. So this is what Jesse was showing. And basically from here, I have the ability to see, again, for a non-technical audience to understand, we can see my files by sensitivity ranking. Is it sensitive data or is it personal sensitive data, i.e. linking back to an individual? And you could see I have files over 10 years old. I have files that haven't been modified in over 10 years. The system has a very unique capability to do data discovery at the record level inside those files without actually modifying that file. So we could scan files and we could identify when that file was created, the last time it was modified, and if there is a file owner, we'll report on that as well. Again, give the ranking, give a breakdown based on sensitivity and personal. And then the top 10 data sources containing sensitive data, top 10 data sources containing personal data. And then we also give a view of your files by data elements by age. I have credit card numbers that have been there for 10 years or more. I have account numbers. I have social security numbers that have been for a specific period of time. I could filter and see the data elements I want. I could also see when those data elements have been last modified. Again, can filter that here. And then we'll give a regulation breakdown of the regulations that are in scope for your attack surface. Just drilling down some more, just a few other things to show is when it comes to doing data discovery and classification searches, I could search for specific data sources. I could search for files. If we're talking about secret search, I'm just coming down here. I'm going to select files, and then I'm going to search my classification category in secrets, and it's going to show me where my secrets are located. And then I could click on any one of these, and I could see the classification category, how many bits that that certification is using. So this could be exported into a CSV report. So if your secrets aren't meeting the proper protection benchmarks, you could then take action on that, update those certificates, or delete it entirely. And then lastly, showing the network map. So this network map can be filtered in a number of different ways. So this is one of the ways you could see how the clients are interacting with the data sources, utilizing our network analytic engine, which is a passive manner of tapping a network. I could filter by specific data assets. I just want to see transactions related to my European customers. I just want to see transactions that are on the local area network. I want to see where my candidate PII or my data subjects are. I want to see where my cryptographic protocols are, my SSL version 3. I could see where a specific classifier is, where my private keys are. So there's a number of different ways to filter this map to understand how the sensitive data elements are transacting with the other nodes on the network. Let's see. Some of the other things I could show real quickly. I think we have some time. I think some key functionality that's worth highlighting while I have some time on this webinar is our supervised AI engine. This is a utility that's growing more and more adoption within our customer base. And think of this as a UI-friendly manner of building complicated training models for a non-data scientist. Simply what happens is we scan data sources for data elements. The system is going to present these candidate bubbles. I'm going to click train. I'm going to look at those candidate bubbles. Based on a set of constraints, the system is going to build a view of that particular database. That database could be modified to condense columns from multiple tables into a single view. I can modify any of the mappings. These are the data elements in that data source. These are the data elements in the Inventa system. I can modify this mapping. I could delete it from my view, essentially present a sample set of records associated with that view. And with a single click, I've made a training model. No CLI commands, no complicated SQL queries. I don't have a data scientist background, and I created a training model as it pertains to my customers for me to understand where my customers are. Jesse, Darren, I think I covered everything that I want to. This was a short and sweet demonstration of our 3.3 functionality with a little supervised AI peppered in there. I am happy to answer any questions, or perhaps we could wrap this up.
Appreciate the time you took today to walk us all through the new features in 3.3. Definitely, if anyone has any follow-up questions, we'd be happy to field those for you. Reach out to us at onetouch.io. Check out the website, and certainly really do appreciate your time today. And that's all we have. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day.